Take a slow breath before you keep reading this, because what is being shared here is not simple or easy. It did not reach you without real effort and quiet struggle. This message moved through long stretches of silence and emotional distance, carrying hidden pain that stayed locked away for a very long time before finally arriving at this exact moment. What it carries feels more important now than it ever has before. Stay fully present with these words, because they touch something that reaches deep inside you. There is someone in your life who has been holding something in their heart for longer than they would ever admit out loud. This went on far longer than you may have ever realized. They did not wake up one morning and suddenly find their feelings had gone away. They did not truly move forward in the way their actions may have seemed on the surface. What actually happened was quieter and far more gradual than their outward behavior ever showed. If you want the full urgent message from your person, hit like right now, so this video reaches more hearts who are quietly going through the same thing. They pushed their real emotions down because they did not know what else to do with them at that time. They covered them up carefully and kept everything hidden from view. They convinced themselves that staying silent would be the easier path. But feelings buried deep inside do not simply disappear. They stay in the shadows and grow heavier with every single day. They wait quietly until one day all of that weight rises to the surface at once, and that is exactly where this message is coming from right now. It does not come from confidence or peace. It comes from fear, doubt, and the painful truth that too much time may have passed without real action. Something shifted inside them very recently. Maybe they came across something that strongly reminded them of you. Maybe they unexpectedly heard your name. Maybe life became quiet enough that the truth finally grew louder than all the distractions they had been using to avoid it. Whatever the cause, it shook them out of the safe place where they had been hiding for so long. One powerful thought landed in their mind with full force. They may lose you forever. That thought did not arrive gently. It did not show up during a busy day when it could easily be brushed off. It came late at night when everything felt still and heavy. It came during moments when their phone stayed silent. The company of other people began to feel empty rather than comforting. And when the noise of everyday life finally faded, the silence started asking questions they could no longer push away. There was no room left to escape the truth. That is when it became impossible to keep pushing the moment aside. Nobody else carries what you carry. Nobody else listens with the same patience you once offered. Nobody else understood them without needing endless explanations. Nobody else gave comfort without making them feel trapped or controlled. The moment that truth became clear to them, a strong sense of urgency began to grow. But pay close attention here, because this part matters deeply. This urgency is not built only from love. It is also built from fear. Fear of losing something precious that cannot simply be replaced once it is gone. If this message resonates, be sure to subscribe so more words like this find you at the right time. If they could speak to you right now, without pride in the way, and without excuses between their heart and their words, they would say something very simple. They should have done more, and they should have done it much sooner. They believed they had more time than they actually did. They thought your care and patience would stay no matter how long their silence lasted. They never fully understood that silence has the power to hurt someone deeply over time. Now they are starting to see that doing nothing is still a choice, and every choice carries a cost. That choice came at a price. It affected the closeness that once existed between you. They carry regret for not being there when their presence was needed most. They carry regret for staying silent when honest words were required. They carry regret for not finding the courage to be open when honesty was the only thing that could have made a real difference. At the time, creating distance felt safer. Silence felt easier to manage. Avoidance felt like control. But avoiding hard things never really protects anyone from pain. It only delays it and lets it grow stronger. The real power in this situation belongs entirely to whatever choice you decide to make next. True power does not rush forward just because someone else has been hit by sudden panic. Strong desperation does not automatically mean real readiness for change. A person can feel deep emotions and still not be in a place where they can love someone with the steady care that is truly needed. Right now, this person is sitting with the honest outcome of who they chose to be when it mattered most. Outcomes have a way of being completely honest. They cut through everything. They strip away the comfortable stories we tell ourselves for relief. They remove the excuses we lean on too heavily. They reveal without softness exactly what silence ended up costing everyone involved. They are now going back through old moments they once believed were too small to matter. They are looking at those moments now through the clear lens of loss instead of the comfort of pride. They remember the small, steady things you did without being asked. They remember how you checked on them without needing a special reason. They remember how you could sense their mood even before any words were spoken. They remember how you held yourself together even when they pulled away without warning. They remember how you always moved toward understanding instead of quick blame or anger. These memories are pressing on them now because they show something painful that is hard to sit with for too long. You met them at a depth they had not yet reached inside themselves at that time. They stepped away from emotional growth and the responsibility that comes with a real connection between two people. For a long time, they lived as if distance was a safe place. But now, that same distance feels more like exposure than protection. They feel seen by you even through the silence between you. Your silence has changed in its quality and length. What once felt like a short pause now feels like real separation growing. What once seemed temporary now feels like something without a clear ending. That shift weighs on them in a way they can no longer ignore. Drop a comment below if you have ever felt this kind of quiet loss before. They can feel that you are no longer building your inner world around their confusion or mixed signals. You are no longer waiting for them to catch up to where you already stand strong. This creates an even deeper fear inside them. Not only the fear that you may say no if they reach out, but also the fear that they may no longer hold the same important place in your life. They worry you may have quietly closed the chapter without drama or confrontation. That kind of calm from someone who was once always there feels unsettling to a person who leaned on that presence without earning it. They are also beginning to understand something important. You never asked them to be perfect or without mistakes. You only asked them to show up when it mattered. You did not demand constant intensity from them. You wanted steady consistency instead. You were not asking them to become someone entirely new. You were asking them to live in line with who they claimed to be. Now they see with discomfort how many times they chose comfort when courage was required. They told themselves again and again that they were not ready. They created reasons for silence and justification for distance. They built long explanations for why the timing was never right. But readiness does not appear on its own. When life requires it, readiness is a choice that must be made actively when you are offering honesty, presence, and real connection. They did not fully meet you there. That realization hurts more now because the chance no longer feels the same. They can feel the change in you clearly. It shows in your tone, in the pace of your replies, and in the fact that you no longer feel the need to prove your worth. That shift changes the entire emotional landscape between you. They once thought they had unlimited time because you were patient with them. They confused your patience with permanent availability. They treated your care as something that would always wait. They forgot that patience has limits and self-respect always returns in time. Hit like if you believe some silences speak louder than any words ever could. Now they are caught in an inner struggle. They want to reach toward you, but they are unsure they can sustain what that would take. They want to say sorry, but they fear making promises they cannot keep. They want closeness again, but they are afraid of the effort it would take to maintain it. So they stay stuck between wanting and avoiding, between stepping forward and staying back. That is why their energy feels uneven and unsettled. Their heart moves one direction while their actions stay in another. They imagine being brave enough to step forward. They imagine finding the right words. They imagine becoming someone better. But imagination is easy. Real action requires change over time. This is where fear grows strongest because deep down they know words will no longer be enough. You are no longer responding to words alone. You are watching for steady behavior and honest truth. This does not mean your care has disappeared. It means you grew stronger in a quiet and steady way. You allowed yourself to sit with sadness instead of running from it. You faced disappointment honestly. You let the truth become clear instead of avoiding it. They are only now beginning that same process. And timing matters deeply. Healing through loss feels very different from growing while love is still easily available. They understand this even if they cannot say it out loud. They know that even if they speak now, things cannot return to what they were. That truth creates fear because what they miss most is the version of you that trusted without hesitation. Trust does not reset easily just because someone finally finds the right words. Once trust moves, the shape of the connection changes completely. So now they stand at a kind of inner doorway. Behind them is the comfort of silence and avoidance. In front of them is the risk of honesty without protection. If they stay where they are, they risk losing you completely. If they move forward, they must face themselves without excuses. That is something they avoided for a long time. What you are sensing is not confusion without a reason. It is a real shift happening at a deeper level. Beneath everything, a quiet truth has been forming steadily. Loss does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes softly. Sometimes it shows up as emotional withdrawal. Sometimes it is simply a change in presence that cannot be ignored. Save this message for the moment you need it most. They feel that quiet shift when they think about contacting you. They feel it when they imagine you moving forward with peace instead of pain. That image unsettles them because they cannot easily stop it or control it. For the first time, they are facing what their own fear has taken from them. They spent a long time fighting against their own feelings. They fought responsibility. They fought openness and emotional honesty. Now that fight has turned inward and become pressure they cannot escape. They are not only afraid of losing you, they are afraid of what that loss reveals about themselves. At a deeper level, they understand this was never only about timing. It was fear of being seen fully, fear of not being enough in love, fear of not knowing how to hold something real without breaking it. They go back to moments where they could have spoken but stayed silent. Those moments feel heavier now than they did back then. You did not disappear suddenly. You adjusted slowly to what was being shown to you. You stopped carrying the connection alone. You stopped filling gaps with hope. You stopped hurting yourself to keep things alive. That shift happened quietly without any announcement. But they see it now. They notice you no longer lean on them in the same way. They notice your mood is no longer shaped by their actions. What unsettles them most is your calm. Calm feels more final than anger. Calm suggests acceptance. Calm suggests you may no longer be waiting for a different outcome. They are used to confusion, but they are not used to clarity from you. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You stand in your own worth now, and that changes everything. Their fear becomes more layered. They worry they are still not ready. They worry they cannot become who you need. They worry you see them more clearly than they see themselves. Standing in truth is hard for someone used to hiding behind excuses. They want to say their feelings were real. They want to explain the silence and the overwhelm. But they are learning that arriving late does not undo what already happened. Apologies alone do not rebuild trust without real change. They are sitting inside discomfort now. The discomfort of missed chances, self-awareness, and timing that no longer works in their favor. The real urgency is not just to reach you, but to finally face themselves. You were like a mirror for them, showing depth and truth. Instead of looking into it, they looked away. Now, without that reflection, they feel cut off from themselves. What you sense is not only that they want you back, it is that they are waking up to themselves, and that waking carries pain. Regret grows stronger when they see your growth. They know they cannot return casually this time. You did not fall apart when they pulled away. You did not beg or collapse. You rebuilt yourself and protected your peace. That has created respect in them, even alongside fear. They now know they must return with honesty and real change if they return at all. The situation feels too serious now. Everything is too clear. That is why they feel unsteady. They do not want to return as their old self, but they are unsure who they are without their defenses. The deeper power stays with you. You do not need to rush because of their fear. You do not need to open doors simply because silence was finally noticed. The only duty you carry is to stay honest with yourself. If this message landed somewhere inside you, then you already know the real question was never only whether they feel loss. The real question is whether anything real and lasting will ever come from what they choose to do next. You already carry more wisdom about this than you may realize. The part of you that stayed awake through all of this, the part that watched without judging too quickly, that part kept growing even when it hurt. What you are sitting with right now is not weakness. It is the beginning of a deeper kind of seeing. You are learning to hold two honest truths at once. That you can still care deeply about someone and still refuse to shrink yourself just to make the connection easier again. That is not coldness. That is integration. That is the slow work of pulling what is real inside you up into the light instead of letting it stay buried under old habits of self-betrayal. The person you are now needs to be met by someone who has done the same kind of inner work. Not someone who only just noticed the silence. Not someone who got scared and reached out only because the loss started to feel real. Anyone can feel fear in the moment. But fear alone has never been the foundation of true love. It has only ever been a surface alarm that fades once the panic settles. If they truly want a place in your life again, it will not come from sudden apologies or perfect speeches written carefully in the dark. It will come from steady inner work that you can actually see over time without being told to look for it. Real change shows up in how someone shows up on a Tuesday when nothing exciting is happening. It shows up in the small reply when there is no reason to keep the conversation alive. It shows up in how they speak about themselves and about you when you are not in the room. That is the only version of return worth trusting. Until then, the healthiest thing you can do is keep standing where you already stand. In your own clarity, in your own truth, in your own worth that no longer depends on whether they finally decide to show up. Your job here is not to wait any longer. Your job is to protect the quiet inner peace you rebuilt with so much effort. That is the seed of everything good that still has not arrived yet. Trust the version of you that learned to let go without bitterness. That version is closer to who you were always meant to become. And if they ever truly meet you there, it will not be the same connection you once grieved. It will be something stronger, slower, and far more honest than anything that came before it. If this message found you at the right time, share it with someone who may need it tonight. That quiet confidence inside you is not something you will lose again. You built it from real pain and real patience, and it now stands as the strongest part of who you are. The next chapter of your life does not need to be shaped by anyone who only returns when the silence becomes too loud to ignore. Anyone who truly loves you will not make you feel like you have to keep waiting for proof of their presence. They will simply show up, again and again, in the small ways that matter most. Until then, allow yourself to trust the stillness you feel right now. It is not emptiness. It is space, sacred space, that is finally being cleared for something far more honest and far more aligned with the future you are stepping into. You deserve a love that does not need a near loss to finally become awake. You deserve a love that was awake from the very start.